Bedtime story indeed, yes. So Arthur, we have Arthur here, Arthur Joseph. Arthur, tell them about yourself, and then I'm going to tell them about me.
Hi, so I'm Arthur Joseph. I'm a Hollywood director, producer, and actor. I live in Hollywood, California, and a stand-up comic. I'm known for Memphis Beat, Burn Notice, Deal or No Deal, To Tell the Truth, Seen Already, Good Girls, just to name a few shows that I've been on. Back in 2007, I was awarded the 2006 Miami Heat Championship ring and the keys to the city of Point Fortin for my selfless contribution to Trinidad and Tobago. There you go.
Oh, so you is at Trini then?
Yeah, you know, you can't escape being a Trini.
You said you're a stand-up comic. You can't sit down and do it too?
Oh, really, really? Well, that would be sit-down comedy.
Okay, guys, and my name is Ariane Mitchell. I am a primary school teacher in Trinidad and Tobago, currently attached to Rosary Boys RC. I know some of my boys are locked on. Boy, so good to have you guys. And I'm also a radio personality, currently attached to Slam 100.5 FM. Always great to be progressively urban. And I'm really excited to do this because children, education, it is my passion. And, you know, I love to read.
There you go. Woohoo!
So we're ready?
Yeah.
All right. So we all know we've been inside for the past few weeks, but we have to come up with activities to keep ourselves occupied, especially keep the brain churning. And we're all being heroes by staying inside because, you know, we have to flatten the curve. And that's a term that means you're trying to reduce the instances of infection of COVID-19, right? Flatten the curve?
Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Right. So this evening we have a great story called, get ready for a drum roll, please, Mr. Hollywood. Fury on Soufriere Hills. Now, Soufriere. Tell me out Soufriere. Is it Soufriere or Soufriere? How do you say it?
Well, some people says Soufriere Hill, which is a little patois. And for kids, patois is a language that's mixed between French, African, English, and Spanish. And it's been integrated in the localism of the countries of the Caribbean.
Right. And in the Caribbean, because many years ago, of course, in your social studies notes, you all would have been exposed at some point why we have, or the term Caribbean melting pot, because we have so many influences of different cultures here. And of course, because we had French colonization, Spanish colonization, we have different places that are, of course, named after them. So today, it's Soufriere or, Mr. Patois?
Soufriere Hills.
Soufriere Hills. All right. So the book was written by who?
This book was written by Heidi Fagerberg and published by Caribbean Reads.
All right. So we're ready.
Kid? And are you ready to have some fun? Then
now remember,
let's get started.
when you're listening to a story, you're listening for several purposes. For enjoyment, of course, and of course to understand what the story is about. So you have to listen very carefully, and I hope you enjoy it. Chapter 3, The Chase. What? Some kid in a costume? Frankie sneered. Big deal. In a volcanic crater, Kyle said under his breath. The boy that stood in front of them stared at them with big, brown, round eyes that slanted sharply in the corners. His body was bare, except for a coarse cloth wrapped around his waist like a skirt. His stance was alert, as straight as the wooden spear that he held in his left hand. His light brown skin was streaked with what Mark hoped was red paint and not blood. Around his neck, he wore a necklace made of shells and something else that looked suspiciously like teeth. He wasn't very tall, but he was lean and muscular. Mark tried to guess his age. His face looked like it might be about 15, 3 years older than he and Kyle, but he wasn't sure because the boy was already much more muscular than the boys at the high school in St. Kitts. He looked as surprised to see them as they were to see him, but he didn't seem hostile. Frankie stepped forward. He seemed determined to prove his point that he was all normal. Hello, he said. Cool costume. The boy tilted his head and creased his forehead into a frown. What's your name? Frankie tried again, speaking louder this time. The boy's frown deepened.
Maybe he doesn't speak English, Mark said. Frankie. Frankie tapped his chest several times, then repeated his name. Frankie. Then he tapped Mark on the chest and said his name. Mark. Mark, he repeated. Frankie pointed to Kyle and did the same thing. Then he walked cautiously up to the strangely dressed boy and pointed at him. The boy's face relaxed. Auntie, he said, pointing to himself. Mark was about to say hello, but Autie's face took on a graded look. Frankie stepped back in fear, but Auntie didn't harm him. Instead, he turned and walked into the bushes. Mark, Kyle, and Frankie looked at each other, but before they could discuss anything, Auntie reappeared. With a wave of his hand, he beckoned to the boys to follow him. They looked at each other again, undecided whether or not to obey the strange boy. At that moment, the bushes, some distance behind them, rustled violently. Something was coming towards them. Let's go, Kyle said, and he and Mark pulled Frankie to his feet. They each put an arm around the injured boy's shoulder, supporting him as they were followed Auntie into the bushes. Auntie looked back, maybe to see what was taking them so long. He strode over, reached down, held Frankie around the waist, and hoisted the small boy onto his shoulder as easily as he was a small sack of potato. He continued swiftly into the underbush, hardly making a song as he moved. Frankie was too shocked to protest. He held on tightly to Auntie, back as he bumped along over his shoulder. Mark and Kyle ran behind them.
They crashed through the trees and underbrush for a few minutes. Mark was panting, and Kyle was barely keeping up with Autie's swift pace. Mark could hear that something was chasing them. He wished he knew what it was, but he figured if he even paused for a second, the animal would gain on them. He kept running, afraid to look behind him or to be bitten. He wondered how long they could stay ahead of the animal. We should climb a tree or something, Mark thought. He hoped that Auntie had a plan. He didn't have to worry for long because they soon entered a clearing, and in front of them, what looked like a small village enclosed by a tall fence. Auntie stopped running as they approached the fence. Mark and Kyle caught up with him and stopped as well, gasping for breath. They looked back towards the forest, expecting to see an animal run out behind them. But nothing happened. Mark still didn't feel safe. He wished they were on the other side of the tall fence. It was twice as high as the children were tall, and it was made of long, stout, straight tree branches that were tied together with something that looked like twine. Mark looked at the fence, but he couldn't see any openings through which they could enter.
What now? He said under his breath, standing like a statue. His eyes opened wide. He opened his mouth as if he was going to scream, but no song escaped. Mark followed Kyle, stare, and saw an animal at the edge of the forest. It was small, about as high as the boy's knee, and it was obviously angry, growling and stomping fiercely. It sounded like an angry dog, but it seemed to have tusks and didn't look like any dog that Mark had ever seen before. Mark thought it might be some sort of pig. It gave a particularly loud snare and then crouched down, ready to spring in Kyle's direction.
Kyle, move! Mark yelled, but Kyle remained rooted to the spot. Mark heard a whistling sound to his left. Something whizzed past his shoulder. The animal was in mid-pounce when the tip of Autie's spear struck it between the shoulder blades. The creature gave a piercing squeal and collapsed to the ground. Mark felt weak. Everything was happening too quickly. He had no idea where they were or even where they were. In front of them lay a dead animal with a wooden spear sticking out of its back. Behind him, a Carib boy named Orty was walking over to the animal to retrieve his spear. Still looking like a warrior ready for battle, Mark's knees gave way and he sank to the ground in a faint. That's the end. Oh, Lord. Thanks again for joining us. Now listen, Carib boy. Now, Arthur, I think there was a paragraph that was left out, but we would probably try. Yeah, one of your I think right after what now? And I think that was kind of, I don't know, kind of crucial. 29.
Close enough.
Pardon?
Close enough.
Yes, yes. All right. So thank you so much, Arthur. And
Okay.
we hope you all had fun listening. And again, you can have the preview, the review when you check out the IG story, which I'll share thereafter.
Okay. Now, but before we go, it's really important that you listen to us. What we got to say. Now, are you guys listening?
I hope so. Hello.
Okay. Okay. So, kids, do you want to be a superhero or a stand-up comic like me?
Or a teacher like me.
There you go. Okay, so here's what you got to do to help out the situation. I need each one of you to wash your hands with soap and water. While you're washing your hands, you got to sing the happy birthday song twice. Wait, sing the happy birthday song?
To you.
Wait. What if I can't sing? I can't sing. Can I just mouth the words?
Hum it.
Hum it?
Come, guys. Of course, you're doing this with soap and water.
Okay, so, okay, right? And remember to wash your hands often and keep your hands out of your mouth, and remind daddy, mommy, granny, and everybody to wear their mask.
Yes, and if you don't have one like Arthur, the surgical one, you can make your own. Check out YouTube. We have some fantastic short videos where you don't have to sew a thing. You may just have to cut off a sleeve of your favorite, well, not so favorite t-shirt, but yeah, and you can make your own mask. It's amazing.
Or you can use a kerchief or a bandana.
Bandanas, yeah, that could work too. Yeah. And of course, you know why we have to do this, and of course we've been doing it, most of us. Thank you very much. And we can do this because we're all in this together. Yes, wear your mask. All right, guys. So tomorrow you're going to tune in again promptly at 8 o'clock. Read2Me TT. That's at Read2Me TT on Instagram. And they're going to have chapter 4 of the same story, Fury on Soufriere or Soufriere Hills.
Soufriere Hills.
And the name of that chapter is Through Time and Space with 2 new readers. So this is Auntie Ari saying, peace up, A-Town down. I'm joking. Bye. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye, guys. All right. So I'm going to end and I will share to the IG story. Okay, guys? Take care. I hope you had fun. Bye, Arthur. Later.
Bye-bye.
And good luck with your, what'd you say, your sit-down stand-up comedy?
Sit down. Well, no, it's sit down stand up.
Oh,
You
listen,
pick the name.
Arthur, before you go, since you're a comic, answer this, right? It's a joke about fruits. You know what lime is? The Trinities like the lime. Check it out,
Yeah.
right? An apple wanted to make a lime banana.
Really?
Banana.
Really?
It's a joke about fruits. Apple wanted to make a lime banana. No, I can't. I wouldn't even be a sidekick. Okay, one more thing. What do you call a bear with no teeth, Arthur?
A bear with no teeth?
Come on, guys. Tell Uncle the answer. You know it? A gummy bear. All right. I will stick to my day job. All right, Arthur, later. A gummy bear.